My 13-year-old was in preschool, and he was telling me about a girl he liked. And he said he liked her because she had silky hair, she was a good digger, and she wouldn't tell on him. Man, that kid had it figured out.
Says what he wants, but he's so contradicted. He's a man of conviction, but he's never been convicted.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. My name is Matthew Gossin, and I am going to be your host. First, let me fill you people in on what I've been doing. Past 3 weeks or so, I have been producing and engineering Ross Matthews' podcast, Straight Talk with Ross Matthews. You know Ross from RuPaul's Drag Race and Chelsea Lately. Well, we've added video, and now there are Patreon subscriptions available, and you get a video every week and extra audio, and it's kind of cool. I'm live switching 5 cameras, and it's a real fun podcast. You should check it out. Go to the Kiss Kiss Club to become a Patreon member. It's less than $7 a month, and you get a lot of content. Well, today on the show, I have Glen Clements. He's a writer and a director and a producer. He's from the great state of New Jersey. He went to NYU, and we met on the 10 o'clock Jay Leno show, that little experiment that didn't go so well, some of you might recall. He was there 6 months, and we worked on some stuff together, and here we are. He found his way onto the Late Late Show with James Corden, and that's where I met him for this interview. Down there, CBS Television City in the heart of LA. We slipped into a boardroom, and this is what we got. So I am here with Glen Clements, director, writer, producer. Glenn and I met back on the Jay Leno show, not the Tonight Show, right? It was the Jay Leno show?
Just the Jay Leno show, yeah.
Right. We worked together you were there a couple of...
6 short months.
Was it 6?
Yeah.
So was it 6 months?
I think it was not even, yeah. I started in August, and I think when they decided to go back to the Tonight Show, that was my quick exit.
Right.
Yeah.
You got your start. Your coolest job was Jon Stewart. Was that your first cool job when you tell people what you worked on? Was that the
first show in late night I worked on was a show called Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn.
Okay.
And I got to tip my hat to Colin, man. He was so generous and so funny and so nice. Like, everyone on that show was 25 years old, and he wanted to work in comedy, and he supported all of us and gave us all a shot. So I think that was like the first show that I would say got me into the space.
It was Colin.
Yeah.
Tough Crowd. I
Yeah,
remember that show.
He's like our like everyone who worked on that show. He's like our comedy godfather.
And how long in between that and Jon Stewart?
So that show got canceled. Let's see, that was in November 2004. I think Bush was reelected on a Tuesday, and our last show was on a Thursday. It's a rough week.
Wow.
And
he just had it. He was like, "Forget it. I'm not doing it anymore."
Yeah.
I don't think it was his choice.
Brian Tucker came in that Wednesday morning and was like, "Well, at least we don't have jobs on Thursday." And then just shut his door. Yeah, so that ended in November of 2004, and then I started on The Daily Show May 2005.
Okay. And I remember when I heard that about you, I asked you about Jon Stewart, and you looked me in the eye and you were like, "He is one of the coolest, smartest guys I have ever worked with," and he left an impression on me. And I had that vibe about him, but
right.
Someone that had interacted with him, I was like, "Oh, okay, you verified it for me."
I would say the same thing today.
Yeah.
The smartest, funniest, coolest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah. What a great experience!
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, it was, and I think I was really still learning late night when I got that job, and I kind of look at I was on the show about 3.5 years. And I just learned so much watching how he approaches like a problem or a topic. I mean, it was an incredible experience getting to work.
Did you jump right onto this after the Jay Leno show, or there was a little time?
No, man, there was a lot. About 5 years in there.
Was there? Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see. 2008. at some point, like say August, September of 2008, I sold a sitcom to CBS.
Okay.
With Rob Riggle, and I moved out here to make the pilot in 2009. And then while we're sort of waiting to hear back on that, I got the Jay Leno show.
Okay.
And then Jay Leno show ended in 2010. And then, I just bounced around a million shows between 2010 and 2015 when I started here on the Late Late Show.
And it's here where Carpool Karaoke was born.
Yes.
And that was your baby?
I did not start when the show started. So the show started, I think, like March 2015.
Okay.
And Anthony Kolecka was here.
Yeah, Anthony.
He directed a couple carpools before I did.
Right.
And then I came in last week of October 2015 and have been here since.
And I just read that you now have representation at a commercial agency. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you, man.
Great. That's fucking great.
Yeah, it's great. It's only been 6 months. But it's a great company that I'm working with, and
how many
some great people as well.
How many spots have you done?
With that company, I've done one so far.
That's normal.
Yeah.
I got my start in a commercial music video production company, and commercials would come in, and I would see how it went, and I thought, oh man, it's nice. That's nice money.
Right. It's good work when you can find it, right?
Sure is, man. That's why if you work a few days here or there, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you started here, you said, so you've been here...
been just about 4 years.
4 years.
Just over 4 years, yeah. It's great. It's definitely, it's the longest job I've ever had. I think, this year became the longest job I've ever had in my life.
Wow. And you went to Tisch School of Arts, NYU?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of people. I went to USC, and I'm kind of jealous of the way you guys do things there.
Why is that?
Well, the way we did it at SC, I felt their idea was like, the politics of Hollywood are brutal, and we want you to start learning those now. And so in order to qualify to be a director on a sync sound film, you had to work as a crew in a previous semester. And in order to get on the crew, you have to know the director. And it was this weird process that, 4 days go by and all the good spots are taken. And then I couldn't even qualify to, direct a film. I had to do the TV program, which I was fine with, and I edited that, and it was cool. But I felt like the amount of money that we paid, everybody should have walked out of there with their own film under their arm.
That's the idea, yeah.
Right?
If you want to be a director,
right?
Why would you pay this incredible, exorbitant tuition to not make a movie? It's kind of insane.
Exactly. And I walked out of there shaking my head, $60,000 in debt, and I was like, wow, okay. Luckily, I learned the Avid and early on, and that was my savior.
Right.
Was editing. So.
NYU was I don't think it was all that there was a finite number of slots.
Right.
And you had to compete. It was kind of up to each class. This is at the senior level when you're a senior.
Right.
It was called advanced production at the time, and I think each class had like 8 or 10 slots, and you had to compete to get one of those slots. And it was up to the professor to decide how to award them. Sometimes the professor would say, I'm the judge. Sometimes it would be a vote in the class. You'd have to pitch. And other times it was a combination of the two.
So I guess it was the same thing. a little bit.
There were only 8 directors in my class. So
oh, you all were?
It was,
okay, that worked out.
It was an easy sell, yeah.
Oh, man. I also heard UCLA was a little more experimental and not so...
They're not
by
as
the book.
production driven, I don't think, are they?
Well,
I don't know.
I heard that you could experiment more, that you could break the rules, and USC was like, no, we're going to make sure you know the rules, and you're going to do the classic edits like we teach you, and then you can go break the rules, smart ass, but we're going to teach you the right way. And I was like, all right, but I don't want to do that, so.
Yeah, I feel like USC is really the pipeline to the studio system and to the jobs. NYU was like a pipeline to independent film and art house film, and it's a much riskier program. Not that when you're 18 and you're making this choice, you don't consider any of those things.
This is true.
Where's a cool place to live and go to school? That's really all you think about.
This is true. So we are here at CBS Television City. The famous Price is Right is done here. This has been going since the 30s? No, 50s?
Price is Right?
No, this studio.
They built it, I believe, in the 50s.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, this is one of the few. I don't know the history of this place as well as a lot of people that work here, but I think it's one of the few stages that's still an operating TV studio in the central part of the city. I think when they built the studios, it was like Sony was one. This was another. Paramount, which is Paramount, and then Prospect were like the last remaining ones that you can still drive to on the side of the hill.
Right.
I could be totally wrong about that, man. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not.
I will have my staff of research people check the facts before.
Please don't do that. Please don't. No. If you're gonna fact check anything I say, I'm in a lot of trouble.
Okay. So you now have a wife and child.
Yeah.
And your little girl is 16 months. You told me.
16 months.
Man, so yeah, you're right in the thick of it. You're not sleeping much.
No.
It does get better, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm looking for. It's amazing. Looking forward to sleep though.
Yeah.
She's the cutest alarm clock that goes off at 6 o'clock every morning.
Are you a napper? Could you maybe
catch
a nap here?
Well, I think I am a napper by instinct, but my wife is not. So she doesn't like it when I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to check out for like 2-3 hours this afternoon. Why don't you take the baby? That doesn't really fly so much, so I'm having to improvise there as well.
I used to take my kid in the car when he wouldn't go to sleep. I'd put him in the car seat and drive around until he'd fall asleep, and then I'd pull over and just sleep right there when he's sleeping. That was how I got my... I knew he was okay because he's strapped in the thing, and I'm just going to park where it's quiet and let's just sleep a little bit. Yeah, I did that a few times.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely shut the door to my office once or twice, and I take like a quick nap, and then walk back into the bullpen thinking I've cleverly gotten away with a nap, and there's like a pillow crease down the side of my face.
Right. Hey, Glenn, how you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, good. No, I'm fine. Yeah.
No, I'm fine. Just working hard in my office.
So if there was a kid getting out of college thinking he wants to move to L.A. and be a director or work in the business, what would you tell him?
Okay, so why don't I do this? When I tell you my story, how I got into it,
Please.
and then people can learn from my mistakes.
Sounds good. That'd be great.
That's probably the best advice is to not do a lot of the things I did. So I went to high school in New Jersey. I went to a math and science high school, and I was part of the first graduating class there. And the school got all this video equipment, and my grandfather was an engineer. My dad was like kind of an engineer, and my family always thought I would be an engineer too. So I was very involved with the school's engineering program. And they were the ones who got this video equipment. And the head of the engineering program asked me to start a broadcast. And I was like a comedy junkie, and SNL was like the biggest thing in my life from like, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
And so instead of making like a news program, I just basically made a sketch show. And I started that when I was about 15 or 16. And I remember during one of our shows, one of the kids in my class like literally fell out of his chair laughing, like fell out of his chair and onto the floor.
And that's what I want from people.
I was like, maybe I could do this, maybe I should give this a try. And so I started to take it more seriously. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I was directing and producing like videos, for local corporations' videos.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was a side job that I did actually through my high school. And I was doing a lot of computer animation then too. Tell
me about the animation. What sort of animation do you like? Do old school cell like Flash stuff?
Or so how it all started was I was in this engineering program, and they had computer animated design, CAD.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was pretty cool, building things in 3D. And then they had a program called 3D Studio where you would animate the things that you built. I thought that was really cool. So I was making all these like computer animated videos. This is in the 90s. I mean, it's not anything like what it is today, but that's what got me into video. And then when the broadcast came along, because I was so into these animations, I think that's why they thought I would be good at doing the school's broadcast.
They were right.
I wonder if it's still going. I haven't been back in 20 years, but I wonder if that show is still going. So anyway, that sort of set me on this path. And then I went to college for film and TV, and I made a film in my junior year that came out really well. It was like 5 minutes long. And I sold it to a distributor, and it went to festivals, and
Great.
it played around the world, played it like a screening at Cannes, and all these good things, and did some good things for me professionally. I also made a senior film that didn't do nearly as much for me, and took like 2 or 3 years out of my life. But this junior film did really well for me. It was kind of like a calling card.
Oh, great.
And so when I graduated college, then I just started PAing, and I worked in like commercials, worked in still photography, worked in indie film, and I just never saw a path to do what I want to do. You know, I saw like a path to be, you know, like a DP
first AC or whatever.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah. But I didn't see how I could be a director or a writer doing what I was doing.
Right.
So I just kept kind of bouncing around. Moved back to Jersey and lived with my parents for a year, and I was working in still photo when I got a call from my best friend from high school who had gotten a job on a VH1 show, and they needed a night dubber, and my job was just to press play on one deck and record on another from like 8 p.m. to like 7 a.m.
Right.
And it was half the rate that I was currently making in still photo, and I was like, I will take it, because I did not want to work in fashion photography. So I did that for actually one night, and then they made me a PA during the day, which was great.
Like, wow,
Much
he
better
got
hours.
He got it
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
He didn't mess it up.
I worked as a PA on the show. It was a hidden camera show, and it was in New York in the summer of 2001. Man, I joined about 2 or 3 weeks before 9/11, now that I think about it.
Wow.
And we were actually at our offices on 9/11. And it's just a terrible time to be making a hidden camera show, to be walking around with electronics under your shirt and in bags,
Yeah.
and then fucking with traumatized people. I mean, it was like
Yeah.
a brutal time to make this show. And one of our crews and casts actually got arrested and went to jail on this show. It was Rob Hubel, who then made a one-man show about it.
About that happening?
About that happening, yeah. And it was really a crazy story. That's his story. I'll let him tell it. But anyway, it was an amazing group of people who worked on that show, people I still work with today. And this show, I think VH1 only aired like a couple episodes. It was just not the right time for that kind of show. But it got me into the comedy world, and it got me into television. And then a bunch of the people who worked on that show then went on to start a show called Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn. And then they called me one morning because they wanted to have a field shoot, and they thought that was something I could do. I hadn't really done it before, but they knew that I'd made this film and I wanted to be a writer and director, so they called me in to produce it. And they said, you can make up your own title. You can be a coordinator, you can be an AP. I was like, I want a field AP is my title. And I made up the job, and they called me at like 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I was there by noon, and I worked on that show for about 2 years.
Wow.
And I got to do everything. I got to edit them, I got to shoot them, I got to produce them, pitch a joke here and there, and it really taught me how to work in late night.
That's great.
It was a great experience. And Colin was so nice to me to give me a shot to do that. I was 25. I looked about 16. Had no right to be doing what I was doing, but he gave me a shot, and really encouraged me too. He was like very complimentary. He's like, you got the eye for it, you know, and gave me this confidence to go out and keep pursuing it. So that show got canceled, like I said earlier, right around the election, 2004.
Right.
And then I bounced around to a couple other shows doing the same thing. I was now a field producer instead of a field AP, but you would basically just, write, shoot, cut these pieces that would roll into these live shows. And I did that for a couple months, did some more hidden camera stuff, and then went out for drinks one night with a friend from college who was the writer's assistant on The Daily Show. And he called me like a week later and said there was an opening in the field department, and this I was about 27 by this point, and this was like the first sort of shot at a big show that I had.
Yeah.
And I emailed the EP, said write a submission and we'll take a look. And I was working on this prank show at the time, and I would work from like say 9 to like 7 o'clock on the show, and then I'd get home, I'd eat dinner, and I'd go to bed by like 8:30, and I'd wake up at like 10:30, and I'd work from 10:30 in the morning, 10:30 at night to like 4 or 5 in the morning on the submission.
Wow.
And I did that for a week, and then it was the first submission I ever wrote, and I turned it in, and they're like, "Great, you want to make a piece?" So I was like, "I'd love to."
Awesome.
Got a 2-week shot to make a piece. It was with Ed Helms, and it was about a Speedo ban that had just been lifted in Cape May, New Jersey. And I was like, this. I knew this. I'd sort of missed. I'd blown some opportunities before this that I didn't realize how hard it is to get opportunities. There were like with this student film, I had gotten meetings with like managers and agents and production companies, and did absolutely nothing with it.
Wow.
So this was like, it took me a couple of years to get an opportunity again, and I was like, I'm gonna nail this, and I'm not gonna let this slip by. So, man, I just poured everything I had into it for 2 weeks, and
it bore fruit.
Yeah, and it was still to this day, I think, one of the funniest things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Man, it ran. I remember the first screening with John. He like was. We did the thing called the nut cam, where it was like we'd put a hidden camera in Ed's Speedo. We faked it, obviously.
Sure.
And he walked around town, and it was just like the point of view shots from this hidden camera were just like a bunch of balls hanging in front of it. And John like cried laughing in the edit. And
that's a good sign.
Man, when it played for the audience. John was like laughing so hard that it killed with the audience. The lighting guy missed his cue. Like he couldn't even do the toss to commercial.
That's great.
No joke. I cried. I was like laughing and crying because it felt like I just hit a home run in the World Series.
Fuck yeah,
I mean,
dude.
Jon Stewart was like my hero. In college, I used to watch The Daily Show, and I'd watch those reports. And I'm like, man, that would be those field reports. And I was like, man, that would be the perfect job. And then I like.
You manifested
I got
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you did.
It was like one of the best feelings. I'll probably never professionally feel that way again.
Wow, that's
so
very
it was great.
cool.
So I was there for about 3.5 years. Got to do some really cool things while I was there. Got to work on some really cool stories. Got to work with incredible talent. Stephen Colbert was just leaving, but Corddry was there. Ed Helms, Jason Jones, Samantha Bee.
No, those are
Rob Riggle. John Oliver, Wyatt Cenac, Dan Backadall. But yeah, it was an incredible roster of talent.
Yeah, for sure.
And then to work under John too was just like a dream come true. So that was 3.5 years. And then while I was there, I also went to Iraq and did a USO tour with Riggle, and then turned that into a week of field pieces on the Daily Show. Went to China with Riggle, and we did a week of reports about China before the 2008 Olympics, and it was the first time the show had done something like that. And then we got to go to the conventions in 2008, went to Barack Obama's first convention and John McCain's convention, which was a really cool, unique experience. And then sold the sitcom with Riggle in 2008 to CBS. And that was my ticket to L.A. I left New York, moved to L.A. for the first time. In early 2009, right as the economy was crashing.
Right.
Quit a steady job and moved to a city where I didn't know many people, right as the world economy was tanking. And made the pilot. And while I was waiting to hear back from the pilot, that's when Leno called me. Not Leno, but that's when I got an opportunity through Nick Bernstein to meet with Jack Cohen on Leno. And that's where you and I got a chance to work together.
Exactly.
And that was a great experience. It was TV on a different scale. You know, that was my first network show that I had like a significant job on. And, you know, the Daily Show was kind of like a mom and pop operation compared to that. You know, like when we needed a prop, it was like a PA making it. And when we needed a prop on Leno, it was like a shop fabricating something, you know?
You'd have to submit it 2 days before, and then this amazing thing would appear.
Yeah. It was like full TV production that I was like, my head was kind of spinning when I first got there because I didn't know how this, you know, machine worked.
Pretty well oiled.
Oh my God. I mean, that place was like 9 to 5.
Yeah.
You know, people were there at 5:01. They're like, "What the hell went wrong?" You know.
So true.
And people spent their whole careers there. It was unlike any other show I've seen in my life. I mean, people had worked there since Carson, and you know, to have your whole career be one job is very rare in this business.
And a little dangerous, because then you get out and then it's like, wait, now what?
Yeah.
I mean, I was there for 10 years and I did freelance before, so you know, I went back doing freelance. But yeah, there's some people who are like, that's it, I'm good, and they're done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that show seemed like it was, for certain people, I should say, lucrative enough that they probably never have to work again.
That's for sure.
I don't think TV pays the way it used to back then.
No, not anymore.
Yeah.
I know for a fact.
Yeah. So then it was, I worked on Leno for 6 months, and that was, it's kind of a mixed bag for me personally. I mean, the people were amazing. But it just wasn't the right fit for me at that point in my career and in my life. I didn't really get the comedy there. There was tremendously funny and talented people working there. It just was like the opposite of The Daily Show, and Daily Show really was the bulk of my experience by that point. So,
I can see that.
After that, I tried to sell another sitcom. Came close on a bunch of things. Spent about 6 months doing that.
Can I ask you what that sitcom you sold with Rob Riggle was?
Yeah, sure. It was called Hardaway, and it was like a sitcom that took place at a 24-hour news network. So Rob was like a Bill O'Reilly type, sort of bombastic, highly rated show that has very, very low journalistic standards. And then opposite him was like a very serious news show that got paltry ratings but was highly esteemed. And that was hosted by like the Diane to his Sam.
Okay.
To use the classic Cheers metaphor. And it was a really funny script, really proud of it. We made a pilot that had a tremendous cast. I mean, Riggle was the star. Jessica St. Clair played the co-star on it. Horatio Sands was in it. Andy Daly, Dan Bacadol, Rachel Lee Cook. And we made it for like, we made it for like nothing compared to what they make pilots for. Peter Principato put the cast together and did an incredible job. So yeah, unfortunately it didn't make it, but still really proud of it. And so after that I tried to sell a couple other things. Didn't have luck that year. And then I jumped on like a show called Commercial Kings with Rhett and Link. And
those guys are great.
They're tremendous, man.
My kids turned me on to them. My kids were like, look at this Mythical Morning thing. And I started watching it, and I'm like, oh, these guys are great.
Dude, that show gets better ratings than any show I've ever worked on, and it's on YouTube. I mean, they get like 10 million views an episode.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
They are, and they own the show, and they own the studio, and they just have created like an incredible show for themselves.
I love those guys.
And they're like really grounded guys. They're family guys. Really funny.
I was driving once, and I pulled up and looked over, and they were in the car next to me. And I was like, I just gave them a little nod, and they nodded back. But then I didn't want to go, hey, I know you guys. When I got back, I texted my kids. I'm like, you're never going to believe who I just saw it in the car next to me. Total celebrity sighting that I was very excited about.
Yeah. They're interesting in that they're like tremendously famous to a certain demographic.
Yeah.
And then I think the country wouldn't half the country wouldn't recognize them.
Yeah, I'm sure they go places and not get recognized all the time.
I mean, that's got to be the best gig because they're very successful and sort of famous when they want to be, and then not famous when they don't want to be, which I'm sure works out really well for them.
I would love to see how they have their setup. I bet it's pretty slick. Like,
they got a stage over in Burbank.
Yeah.
They got actually 2 studios. This is the last time I was there. It's been about 5 years.
Yeah,
they're a well-oiled machine, and they have books. They have a live show tour. They have shows they produce. They have a podcast. I mean, they've created like a whole entertainment studio.
Sometimes they seem that they're a little pissed at each other.
They've been friends
for
since
so
they
long.
Were like, yeah, man, since like 7th grade. I think younger than since they were like 7 or 10 years old.
Because you can notice sometimes they're like, we have to do this show because we have an obligation to our fans. But right now, I'm pissed at you.
Right.
I get that vibe sometimes.
Well, they're like brothers, man.
Totally.
I mean, they might get pissed at each other, but at the end of the day, they're brothers. That was a great experience working with them. Bounced through. Yeah, so then after that, I just kept working on like sketch shows and variety shows, and sold an animated show. Worked on that for about a year and a half. which was my first time in animation. Great experience. Sold a couple other things that didn't quite go to series. But I always found myself going back to, like, my bread and butter is this tape and a live show. I've done it for award shows. I've done it for primetime specials. I've done it for late night shows, cable shows.
It's all about the live.
Yeah. Well, I'm like the not live portion in the live. We sort of operate on a different schedule and calendar than the live shows, but we're
you have to have that content ready to go on that show.
Oh yeah,
and noted
been in that truck cutting to the last second, man, and then you're kind of watching the clock and bite your nails, hoping it comes together, but you got to go live on network TV in like 5 minutes, and it's not quite there.
I've been there. Yeah.
So it makes you feel alive. It's when it's over, it's fun.
So, how's working with James Corden? He seems like he's a very talented dude.
He's incredibly talented. He's got so many different skills. I'd say he's the most talented performer I've ever worked with, because he could act, he can sing, he can dance, but he also knows how to write, how to produce, how to direct. I mean, he's really got the mind for this kind of show. I think to succeed on a late night show, especially like a daily show, you have to have all those skills.
Yeah.
You have to be able to write for yourself and to know how the machine works, because the pace, as you know, is like crazy on these shows.
It can be crazy.
Yeah, and so you really have to have like a handle on everything, and then it's got to be your voice too. You can't rely on someone who might leave the show to be your voice. You have to have your own voice that you can own and know and shape.
Yeah. Any words of advice to the budding director? Just do it.
Yeah, I mean, that really is like the only advice there is. Just make as much stuff as you can. Learn how to collaborate. That's a huge part of directing.
Yeah.
You have to be a director, you have to have a vision, but you also have to have respect for other people's skills and abilities, and you have to give them room to create. I think young directors a lot of time think they have to be like this brilliant visionary and
do everything.
I know, yeah. And the truth is, like, if you give talented people around you space to create, they'll bring you great things, and then you just sort of edit them down to what you need for the bigger picture.
Right.
On this job, I've done things that I've never had an opportunity to do before, and really had like no preparation for. I'd never worked with a choreographer until this show, and this show teamed me up with an incredibly talented choreographer, and I said, I would just give her like sort of the framework, and then she creates awesome things, and then that's what it is. Like, I don't go in there and show them dance moves I want. She just sort of creates this incredible stuff that I figure out how to like plug into the bigger picture.
And is this the Crosswalk, a musical?
She does she's done all the crosswalks we've shot in the States, and she is like the choreographer for Crosswalk, the musical. Very cool. Yeah, she's incredibly talented. But it's also that way with DPs, Surround yourself with people who can bring you good ideas, and you can say yes or no or shape them as you need to for the bigger picture. But learning how to collaborate is, I think when you were talking about your experience at USC, it sounds like they really wanted to teach you how to, number one, like operate in the sort of social ecosystem that is Hollywood.
Yeah.
But also how to like work with others and get them to
do what you want.
Yeah. Well, you had to at USC, it sounds like you had to work under someone before you could be a director. And that makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. Yeah. I mean,
totally.
You can't direct without experience on set. It's just I couldn't imagine walking to set the first time and having never been on a set and being expected to do it. Do you direct?
I have done some directing. Yeah.
Yeah, because you said you're in the DGA.
I'm the DGA, but that was because of the Tonight Show.
Right.
The editors were all associate directors, because I guess it was a DGA show, and so they would have had to have an AD in the room to work with this editor who was not. So I guess the first editor, Kevin, said, well, just make me a DGA, and then I was the third editor to come in there, and they were pretty much like, work here for a while, and if they like you, you can be in the DGA. So yeah, I was there almost 10 years.
It's a great union.
It is.
It really is one of the finest unions in town, I think. They really stand behind their members.
Totally.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Oh, please.
So, when you're a director, like you never collaborate with other directors. And, you're an editor, so you collaborate with, I'm sure, lots of directors.
Yeah.
What's your take on like different directors and different styles when they come into your edit? How is that? How do you adjust? And then like, where do you find?
Well,
Tell me about that experience.
I try to see what their approach is. Do they know what they're doing and have a very good idea of what they want and the takes they want to use, and they already see it in their head and they just want me to put it together because they don't have the technical skills to do that. There's that type of person, and then there's someone who just wants to drop off the footage and send me a cut in 2 weeks, and then there's everything in between. I mean, I like the freedom to go and sort of do what I think works, but when there's a time limitation, I'll just skip that step and go, okay, you're the decision maker. What are we doing here? Let's do this. I want to do it the way you see it. Mm-hmm. And if along the way I might have a suggestion like, hey, how do we try this? What if we put this in here?
Do you like to do that first cut yourself? Like, just give me the footage, let me assemble it, and then we'll sit together?
It depends. It depends on what it is. If I have to go through a bunch of stuff and I don't have a lot of guidance, and it's like I could spend days creating something that you're going to then shut down and totally change, that's fine if you're paying me, daily or by the hour. Frequently, I'm getting into these situations where they're like, here, I have this amount of money to do this. And then they end up stretching and stretching and stretching. And then you're like, I made $12 an hour on this job.
Never take some advice for young directors?
Yes.
Never take the flat rate.
Never take the flat rate.
Right. When you're a director of a movie, you kind of have to. But if you're working by day, like definitely.
But even the minimum director fee, if it's a union job, is substantial. So it's like it, and then you're like, yeah, maybe I will be working 16 hours and I won't gonna get any sleep for these 2 weeks. But it's your baby, and that's the way it should be.
Right.
I guess I like to be efficient is my thing. I don't want to spend time doing something that's going to have to be undone.
Right.
Unless, of course, you're paying me on a daily rate to try and to get to a certain point, and then they're like, all right, well, we only have a week left now, and you didn't go in the direction I want. And then it's almost not confrontational, but now we have a problem. It's like, well, you hired me to do my thing. I did my thing, and now you don't like my thing, and now we're running out of time, and now I'm going to have to work all these, that can drive me nuts,
Right.
I guess lately I prefer someone who knows exactly what they want and maybe give me a paper cut.
Right.
I want this bite. I want this B-roll. I want to even use this music. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have all those instructions and be able to put it together, because I can look at all the ingredients on the table and I can go, okay, I see.
At least then you have a direction, and I mean that's helpful with any job.
Yes,
really is to say like, where do we want to go, rather than searching around and trying to find it, because there's going to be so much trial and error.
Right.
If you're just kind of searching around for it. So.
And when that happens and I'm on a flat rate, I feel like I'm getting screwed.
So you're DGA. Are you also in the editors union?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Editors work hard. It's like it's labor intensive.
It's a tough job. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's a very tough job.
After 8 hours of pounding on the keyboard, your mind is tired. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to talk to young directors about really where to learn the craft of directing, it is
editing.
In the edit. If you don't know how to put together something in the edit, then you really don't know how to shoot it.
Agreed.
It's really where you find the story and what you need and what you don't need.
Yeah, there's a power in editing that I like to have that control, I guess.
Right.
I do like that.
I feel like editors, a lot of them are like pretty solitary. It's not like a social job. Do you feel like?
Yes, and I miss that part of it.
Right.
I like to be social. I'm constantly getting up and wandering into the kitchen or into the edit bay next door and saying, "Hey, how's it going, guys?" and chit-chatting.
Yeah.
Which is maybe why I'm not getting hired anymore. Well, Glenn, I appreciate you doing this. Really, it was really great to catch up and hear your story.
Thanks, man.
And I wish you all the best.
Likewise.
And if you need an editor on one of your commercials, slide right in there.
Yeah. We'd love to work together again.
For sure.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, dude. Thank you.
Yeah.
I really want to thank Glenn for fitting me into his busy schedule. It was really great to talk to him and catch up, and I know he's going to call me for a gig soon. Right, Glenn? You better call me, bro. I know you will. If you have been one of the people that has left a kind review, well, I really want to thank you. And if you want to be one of those people, well, I want to thank you too. Just go to iTunes and say something nice. Man of Conviction. If you want to drop me a line, that's manofconvictionpodcast@gmail.com, or manofconvictionpodcast.com is the website. Check it out. Ciao for now.
Says what he wants, but he's so contradicted. When it comes to boxers, the briefs, he's a little bit conflicted. Walks the streets of Van and he's totally unrestricted. He's a man of conviction.